every time you have a conversation with your kids about their future, ask yourself this question. Does my opinion have anything to do with regrets in my own life? Let's just start there.
Ooh.
I'm so sick of hearing this. I want a well-rounded kid. Nobody goes to Lowe's and goes, I want one of those well-rounded Sanders.
Well, are you saying I should just stop doing math with my 8th grader?
They don't care where you went to school. They do not care. Nobody cares.
I was just talking with my 8-year-old last night. He was like, Dad, I don't think I'm really good at anything. And I said, well, what do you mean? You're good at lots of stuff. And he's like, yeah, but like none of those I can do for a job. Welcome back to the OpenEd podcast. Today, I have a legend, Ken Coleman.
Where's the legend? Are they coming up behind me?
You can tell by the quality of the studio he's in that he's a legend. He is a multiple-time best-selling author. He's a host of Front Row Seat, The Ken Coleman Show. He's been a part of Ramsey Solutions and has helped thousands of people really figure out not just like how to navigate their career in a practical sense, but how to actually connect what they love, connect their passion to their career, which I think is one of the biggest goals of every parent who is thinking about their kid's education is I want my kid to be successful and happy, not miserable. Mm-hmm. And those two things often seem in tension. So Ken is a master at that. Ken, thanks so much for coming and joining us.
My second favorite Isaac. You're only outdone by the one in the Bible. So it's high praise.
Wow.
Good.
Hey,
yeah.
well, there's not too many.
No,
the bartender on the show, The Love Boat from the 70s,
yeah.
you know, I don't know. There's not a lot. So, but I appreciate it.
You just took the compliment and you really devalued it right there. But true, but very true.
So I want to start with your newest book, which I have here. Find Work You're Wired to Do. I love that title because it's if you've ever tried to title a book, you know the subtleties.
It's painful.
But it's not the same as find work that you love, which is not a bad phrase, or find your passion, or find work that you can make a bunch of money at. But I like that you're wired to do because it combines two things. It implies that you do love it or you do find some joy in it, but also that like something in who you are, it's natural to you. It's That's something that comes easy to you. Give me your, like, how did you come up with the name? And then we can get into the contents of the book.
The name came to us as a result of methodology that I developed over 7 years coaching professionals who weren't where they wanted to be. And I came up with the concept that there are really 3 wires to every human being. If I were to cut professional Isaac open and we were to open up his chest, we would see 3 wires. Talent, that's what Isaac is naturally good at doing. He came into this world just like every other human being, hardwired with some talent, and then over time with education and experience, we hone that talent into a sharpened skill. So that's what we do best. Just think of that first wire. This is what I do best. Second wire is what we love to do most. And for some, it's creative. It's writing. For some, it's building. For some, it's fixing. For some, it's serving. For some, it's speaking. For some, it's singing. We get this, right? And so, again, we come into this world hardwired, and we just kind of lean and gravitate or maybe pull like a magnet, get pulled to certain types of work or actions. So that's passion, what we love to do most. The third wire is a sense of mission. This wire is also something we're given from the moment we come into this world. And this is the longing to make a contribution. This wire is why every human being, Isaac, at some point in their life asks the question, why am I here? Or what should I do with my life? Okay. So that is the results that we care most deeply about. In other words, what contribution do we want to make? So let's take the 3 wires now, and it's a very simple sentence. And this is how to know if you are doing purposeful work for you. If you use what you do best, your talent, to do work you love, passion, to produce results you care deeply about, mission, you are on purpose. You are in fact doing work that you're wired to do by the creator of the universe. And so
Oh,
that's it. Use what you do best to do work you love to produce results that matter. Use what you do best to do work you love to produce results that matter to you. That's the quest. And that's where you're going to see enough provision. You'll make enough money. That's why public school teachers or teachers in general in the United States are the third largest group of net worth millionaires. The median salary for teachers is about $63,000. They're not making a ton of money, but they're making enough because they love the missional work of teaching, instructing, and guiding young people. And they figured out how to live on less than they make and save. And so that's what I mean by you'll have enough provision, but more importantly, you will experience tremendous meaning and purpose in your work.
man, I love that. It's funny. One of the challenges that I run into is like, okay, when I talk with young people, and I have this myself as well, especially because I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm not there's not one thing that's clearly stand out. And for people like that, okay, how do I find those three wires?
I
How do I
disagree with
figure out
that,
what
by
they
the way.
are? What's that?
I disagree with that.
Do you?
If I knew you better, or if I were to spend time with people that really know you well, some teachers, probably your parents, maybe some siblings, some good friends that have known you for your entire life. I don't have that luxury of knowing you. I guarantee you there are one or two talents that really stand out. And I'm not doing this to be argumentative. I'm not doing this, but I'm going to call this out because it was a part of your question. So I want you to
Yeah.
continue to ask the question,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you right now, you aren't a jack of all trades. If I were to see all of the trades that you say I'm a jack of, which is such a weird phrase, right? It's
Yeah.
like there's something common in all of those things. You're able to do a lot of things well, yes or no?
A good number,
Okay, a good number of things well.
but
There,
very few things really, really well.
and that's because you haven't locked in.
Yeah.
You
So
have
so
not locked in. You've got talent. There's two or three talents. I guarantee it. That in fact, I wish you. I'm going to send you my Get Clear career assessment, not because you need help with your career, but it's the assessment that measures those three wires. I'll guarantee you, your top three talents are evident in those things that you say you do well.
Well, this is great because this is exactly where my question was going, and I was not that this isn't still true, but I was speaking primarily of like early phase Isaac. I have started to hone in, but
Okay.
people that are like, okay, what is it for me? I I often you tell me what you think of this if this goes with your methodology. I often feel like starting from the negative is actually an easier way to figure those out. To start and say, well, I don't know for sure what I'm really great at, but if I can start figuring out what I'm not good at and what makes me
I
feel
like
dead
that.
inside, you know what I mean? And then
No,
it's like
I like that.
chiseling away.
Well, let's just own it. And I actually like this suggestion for two reasons. Number one, it gives us some early momentum in self discovery.
Yeah.
Self discovery is the most important thing that we can do, but it's also one of the most difficult things we could do, right? Because we just all have blind spots and we have insecurities and all the things. So it's very hard to see ourselves as the world sees us. So it's actually great for the first reason of just simple elimination. Well, here's the deal. And I'll use myself as an example. Okay. So if I start this exercise out, I go, all right, let's just look at some basic weaknesses in the area of academics. I suck at math and science. When I die, if they examine my brain, they will find that that part of the brain is completely dark and dead and has been my whole life. I suck at math and science and logic type stuff. So let's go ahead and move it off. So it's a great exercise to get some momentum to go, okay, I know I'm terrible here. And the second reason that it's good is because we live in a Western culture, Isaac, that I know you fight against. And there's this Western philosophy that we have to work on our weaknesses. And we get taught this. And we learn this in elementary school right out of the gate. And it's when we take a test or we turn in a paper, what happens? They return it to us with all the things we missed. And so it's ingrained in us. Okay, I missed all of this and I'm not good at this. And then we say, okay, you got a C in this class. And you got a C in this class or a D in this class. You got to work harder on that to get that up to be an A and B. And it's actually foolish philosophy. What we ought to do is go, let's look into why Ken got a D in math. Was it because he was lazy and that he didn't do his work? Or is it because he just does not have the natural God given proficiency in this? And we should probably pay attention to that and go, he can work his tail off and maybe get a C plus. Is this what we're driving for in life? And so for those two reasons, we need to get to a point where we begin to own our weaknesses and not try to hone our weaknesses. It's a wasted effort. I can work my tail off if I'm a 3 in something on a scale of 1 to 10 and I bust my butt, I might be a 5. I can tell you this, the world doesn't pay for 5s. The world pays for 9s and 10s. That's a work application. And the second thing is the soul. The soul doesn't thrive when it's stuck doing 3s, 4s, and 5s. The soul thrives when we're in the 8, 9, and 10 area.
So for parents who have kids and they're in their whatever phase of schooling they're in, whatever grade they're supposed to be in, what I hear you say is terrifying to many.
Yeah.
Well, are you saying I should just stop doing math with my 8th grader? I don't want them to be behind. I want them to be well-rounded. I don't want them to feel dumb. I want them to get like, how much is, hey, yeah, that's all fine once you're an adult and you know you're not going to get a career in it. But when you're in 8th grade, you need to be a B student at least in
No,
every one of these subjects.
no. Okay, so here's what I'd say to parents. And by the way, I've done this. And I've done this with a couple of my kids. I have one kid, I got 3 kids. One of my kids is straight A, 4.0. It's just easy for him. The other 2, they're like me, strong in certain areas, struggle in others. And I will tell you with both of those 2, when they bring home a C, all I'm looking at is effort. I want to see what the teacher said about them in the classroom. If we're seeing some negative patterns, which I mentioned earlier, meaning lack of effort, totally just you blew it off, then I've got a challenge with that. And I'm going to challenge that. But if they did a pretty good job and their effort was there and the best they could do is a C, guess what we do at our house? Nice job. You're never going to do that after school. No one's ever going to pay you to do that. In fact, you're going to pay somebody else to do that kind of stuff. And so, and then you go, well, you're not dumb. And I always go, you're not dumb. You have strengths over here. And I always go right to, you have weakness here, but you've got strengths over here. And we thrive and we survive off of our strengths. And so don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. And one other quick comment. I'm so sick of hearing this. I want a well-rounded kid. Not me. I don't want a well-rounded kid. Well-rounded people, they're not out there. This idea that the world's full of well-rounded people is nonsense. It's to suggest that we don't have weaknesses. I want to raise arrows. I want to raise swords. People that can cut through and do something. Think of ourselves as machines. Nobody goes to Lowe's or Home Depot and walks in and goes, I want one of those well-rounded sanders. I want a well-rounded blade cut. It's like, no, like anything that does really good work and that is efficient has an edge to it. I mean, think about that for a second. So I hate that well-rounded stuff. Well-roundedness is a prison for fake balance. And any successful person in any area of their life is not balanced.
No, I love that. I love that. Even the analogy itself is like a well-rounded tool is a blunt tool.
Yeah.
Anything you need a sharp edge. When it comes to like trying to map interest, aptitude onto a career, what is there like an age? I was just talking with my 8-year-old last night. He was like, Dad, I don't think I'm really good at anything. And I said, well, what do you mean? You're good at lots of stuff. And he's like, yeah, but like none of those I can do for a job. And I'm like, you're 8. Whatever you're going to be doing for a job probably doesn't exist yet. So like, don't worry about it. Follow those interest follows. But there's this pressure to kind of map things onto a career path. And at some point you have to figure out how to make money. But do you have any thoughts on sort of what is the natural progression of letting kids just explore without thinking about how I'm going to turn this into something professional versus, no, you need to get serious and figure out how to make money with what you're good at?
I think you let it happen on its own. This is probably going to be controversial to some. It's going to freak some of you out, but give me 2 minutes to land this thought.
Freak us out, Ken.
I'm going to tell you, it starts with a potty training story. So our first 2 children were boys. And you'll know this. I don't know if girls do this. I don't recall this, but I remember when the boys were toddlers, they would always follow me into the bathroom. And, you weren't paying attention. I'd go to the bathroom and I'd look up and I'm going to the bathroom and there's one of my boys like, hey, buddy, leave that, and then I remember we started potty training the oldest one and it was intense as far as the programs we were reading and how to do it. And I remember telling a buddy over lunch who, his boys were a little bit older than mine, so he'd been through this process. I was like, "This thing that my wife brought to us about our regimen and teaching our son how to be potty trained feels like a lot." It was just, whoa. And he said something to me that I'll never forget, and it was one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever been given, and this is the advice to the question, all right? He said, "Don't sweat it." He goes, "Same thing for me." He said, "My wife did the same thing. It wasn't working. I was getting stressed out by it." And you know what he said? He said, the boys always followed me into the bathroom. So I just let my oldest one follow in and I would tell him what I'm doing. Daddy's going number two, you know? And he just was like, this is what daddy's doing. And this is how we do it. And he said, like 2 weeks later, his oldest came to me and said, "I want to go number two like you, daddy." Potty trained instantly. Now, funny, silly, crazy story. Probably made some of you uncomfortable, but I think that's the process. So
Mm.
you model it and you discuss it real time. Look, daddy's going number two, so he's going to sit down on the potty. And it seems so like, what? But they're paying attention. So to your story you just shared, when your 8-year-old says it, and I'm not in any way playing armchair quarterback, but I think it's a good illustration. What I think would be good for you to do is in moments like that, when he says, I don't do anything well," and you say, "Well, you do a lot of things well," and he's like, "Yeah, but I get." Now listen, he's 8 and everything's gonna change, but lean into the moment and don't dismiss it as an 8-year-old. Go, "All right, his 8-year-old brain just threw this out at me. Let me lean into it." So what I would have said in that situation is, I would have come up with 1 or 2 things that he could grab onto to go, "No, you know what? You're actually really good at this," and be very specific. And then when he responds and says, "Yeah, but I can't," you go, "You know what? A lot of people," you're not saying him, you're not going, "You could do this." You're going to go, "You know what, buddy? A lot of people make money and have good jobs using those 2 things that I just mentioned." Let me give you an example. One is just kind of fill in the blank and then let it go and let the kid just sit with that and ask whatever questions they want. And what's happening is real time as these kids, whether it's 8 or 14, as they begin to bring these things up as parents, what we tend to do is either dismiss it as, well, he's 8. You don't have to worry about that right now. No, lean in and begin the conversation of his intelligent design. By the way, there is data out there, and I wish I could quote it, but I can't. But I saw it several years ago that there was a study done, and they found that many adults in their 20s, late 20s and early 30s return to work or an idea that they had when they were 9, 10 years of age. And so it is not too soon for a kid to go, I think when I grow up, I want to work with horses.
Hmm.
And I had a call one time on the Ken Coleman show. A young girl called in at 27. She was miserable in her job and felt like she had no direction in life. And as I began to dig in, I began to go back and I said, I want you to take me back to being a teenager. What's something that you wondered about, you fantasized about, that if I could do this and make money? And she said, working with horses. And I said to her, why didn't you pursue that? And she began to cry. And she said, because when I told my mom and dad that I wanted to do that, my dad said to me, you'll never make any money doing that and you'll struggle your whole life. And she said, I love my dad. He's a good dad. I don't think he meant anything by it, but he crushed my dream. And so our response, beyond dismissing it as a fantastical kid idea, our other response tends to be, okay, well, the horse thing, ooh, I don't know. And we just quickly process it, and we process it through the protection lens. And if we're not careful, we squash our kid's heart. And so I know this was a long answer,
Oh, it's good.
but I think what we have to do is we've got to allow the kids to continue to wonder and explore. And instead of trying to redirect them, just go, absolutely, you should look into that. Here's what I would look into. Look into this, and always lead with the positive, because I believe that they will figure it out. If we use the context of the Find the Work You're Wired to Do assessment, the book there for, look at, hey, does this future allow you to use your top talents? Does this future allow you to do work you're passionate about? Does this future produce results that you care deeply about? That's the rubric. That's the frame. Do that, parents. Ask questions. Stop making all these protectionary statements.
You mentioned that young woman whose father was, you don't want to work with horses. And
Mhm.
that is, as parents, I think one of the biggest challenges is once we get an idea for what we imagine success for one of our kids looks like,
Yeah.
as they change, that idea doesn't change. It gets anchored too much. I remember growing up, my mom would
Mm.
always say, you boys should take a small engine repair class. You should just know how to repair small engines. I don't know where she got this idea, but this
Yeah.
was like for some
Sure.
reason, she associated this with like being a useful man in the world. We never did. I never learned how to repair small engines. Here I am today. I do work that I love, and I can afford to pay people to mow my lawn or fix
100%.
my lawnmower. But my mom still has this thing. I should have made you guys take a small engine. Like she still feels like
Mhm.
that was something that, and it's very small. For some people, it's much bigger than that. It's like, I only view you as successful if you have a degree. And I have met people who are thriving as entrepreneurs, making great money, happy with their lives, and their parents are still disappointed in them that they didn't get a degree. So
Yeah.
for parents, how do you coach other parents to learn to, yes, have ambitions and belief in your kid's ability and push them to achieve it, but to be able to let go of your vision of what success means if it's no longer relevant?
You have to ask yourself this question every time you have a conversation with your kids about their future, and even when you're talking with your spouse about their future. Ask yourself this question: does my opinion, my belief, or my desire for them have anything to do with regrets in my own life? Let's just start there,
Ooh,
right? Just start there. I mean, I know,
get
it's a,
real.
I know it's a dart, but I do think you have to have that context because you've got to check yourself, and you have to realize how much influence you have on your kid. So you better make sure that you're not making some suggestion or you have some value system and some belief that you're putting on your kid because of some ghosts in your life. Start there. Now, if you can say, no, you know what? Oh, yeah, I kind of want this for them. Like, you know, at the end of the day, if you were to push every healthy parent and you said, well, look, forget the school that you went to or the school you'd like them to go to and all the things, what do you really want for your kids? And what are they going to say, Isaac? Give me a stock answer. What's every healthy parent going to say if I say, forget the job they're having, how much money they make? Give me just high level themes. What does every parent want for their kid in their future as their kid becomes an adult? Give me a stock answer.
I want them to be happy and I want them to be a good person.
There you go. Be able to take care of their family, provide for themselves. So, like at the end of the day, we don't care as much about the specifics as we think we do if we are healthy. But if we're like, well, I want them to go to this school so I can tell everybody I know that they went to this school, or this is my favorite football team, and man, it would be great if they go to school there. I'm walking that out right now with my middle son. He's got a 4.0, he wants to coach football. I'm very blessed and honored, um, privileged to be a Michigan Wolverine fan, the greatest football program in the history of
Oh,
college
I'm a Michigan
football.
State fan. This week,
Well, sorry, little bro. I mean, it just is what it is. And I've got a relationship with the team. And so I know several coaches on the staff. I know the director of character development for the team, and I'm blessed to kind of be on the inside. And I'm able to connect my middle son with one of the coaches, and Michigan is an option on the table right now. And I have to be careful, Isaac. My wife called me out on this the other day, and she was right. And this is an example here. She's like, do not put too much pressure on him for Michigan. Because I literally said to her the other night, I said, oh my gosh, when this thing developed and I get him in touch with the Michigan coach, and the coach is like, if you come here, you'll have a position on the team in the coaching staff and working on it, as a student. Um, I mean, Isaac, you get this. I'd lose my mind. I would lose my mind if he was inside Schembeckler Hall and a part of the program. I would float to work. So I've got to be very, very careful that I don't in any way manipulate that. And so that's an example of how we got to be careful not to put stuff on our kids that's really our stuff. They are unique individuals.
Hmm. So I want to switch just a little bit on kind of what's happening out there in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So there's still this notion, okay, if I'm going to prepare myself for my career, what I really need are the credentials. I
Mhm.
need the grades, I need the degrees. What are employers actually looking for? What is actually valued right now when you're
Mm.
talking about getting your career started? What should you chase after if not a well-rounded transcript?
Well, let me answer the first part of the question first, and that is, what are employers looking for? They're looking for potential. They're looking for high character. That's what they're looking for. More and more, we're seeing in corporate America specifically that young people are coming out of college and they're not really trained well for these jobs. I mean, we're seeing this all over the news. Would not be difficult search to find this. And so they're realizing that universities and colleges aren't training young people to be able to step into the world of work like they used to. It's just things have moved so quickly with technology. And so a lot of companies are going, we'll train you. If you've got the talent and the skill, we'll train you and hone you. We just want to know that you have the ability, the chops are there, and that you have high character and you're willing to come in and you're willing to learn and pay your dues. That's what they're looking for. And so the degree, they don't care where you went to school. They do not care. Nobody
I
cares.
want to stop you there real quick. As this has come up many times, it is clearly so valued in the professional world and in your personal life, your character. And
Mhm.
yet, there's been this weird thing that's happened where education is a list of academic subjects. And then it's like, well, where's the character? In fact, it's considered like not good to try to mix values and beliefs about what's right and wrong into
Right.
most subjects. Where do you focus as a parent to develop the character in your kids? I know I split you off of the question
No,
you
no,
were on
it's
your
great.
way to
No, I'm
answering.
glad you did. So, two things. One, we many times hear the word character and we start thinking integrity and being honest and knowing what's right and wrong and not doing bad things. And it is. But I would also suggest to you when I say character, there's actually some qualities that are not necessarily about right and wrong.
Hmm.
Okay, so first, let's say integrity. You're honest. You're not a deceitful person. You're kind and respectful. Great. Okay, good. That's integrity as a human being. But there's two specific character qualities that I was thinking about when I first said this, and it is number one: are you coachable?
Hmm.
Are you coachable? This is on Gen X, my generation, and millennial parents. This is on us. But we were raised by boomers, and boomers were like, if you fell down and you skinned your knee, they were like, get up, blow it off, put a little water on it. It's going to sting like you know what for a couple of minutes. Get back out there. There were no bike helmets, none of that stuff. Then technology and marketing became a thing, and they scared the crap out of my generation as parents. And so what did we do? We were constantly protecting our kids, all these things. And so we've raised kids. We didn't want to hurt their feelings, all the things, and didn't want them to get hurt, all the things, which are very natural. But we were the anxious parents, and thus we've raised the anxious generation. Jonathan Haidt's book, this is a runaway bestseller. All right. That being the context, we've got to, in college and in parenting, we've got to be teaching coachability. That's one of the biggest character traits that will set you up for guaranteed success. Here's what I mean by being coachable. And parents, you got to teach this. The first part of being coachable is I am willing to take instruction. Like I will sit there and I will listen to someone who knows how to do something, show me how to do it. I will receive and take instruction and say, I don't know everything just because I can whip around my iPhone and YouTube. I will take instruction. The second part of being coachable is the hardest part, and that is to take correction. Hey, you didn't do this right. This is how we do it. Now, we see this in athletics. We see this with coaches going, okay, we're going to show you how to do the drill, and we do the drill. And the coaches are watching, they're blowing the whistle, they're yelling at you. You didn't do it right. Do it again. You
And
know,
the more a kid loves a sport, the more they're willing to take
100%.
the tough coaching.
100%. So that's being coachable. Can I receive instruction and correction? The second quality, and this is the number one soft skill, that is desired in corporate America, according to LinkedIn, 2 out of the last 3 years. Adaptability. Are you adaptable? And I think coachable and adaptable go hand in hand. Adaptable, let's just call it what it is. That just means I can handle change without melting down. It's that simple. Now, as humans, you know, generally speaking, we don't like change. Some of us like change. I like change. But a lot of us don't like change, and that's because there's unknown associated with change. But to become adaptable is to build some grit. Angela Duckworth's book on grit is the master class on this. The ability to handle what comes with change. And can I be comfortable being uncomfortable? Is
Mm.
another way of saying it. So I think those two things, Isaac, those are two examples. I could say honorable, is another character trait. That's what we talked about with integrity. Reliable. People can count on me. I do what I say I'm going to do.
The number of people who can win and retain jobs literally just by showing up on time every day is vastly underappreciated.
Yeah. So I think those character traits, just to name a few, that's going to set you apart. And that's what companies are looking for. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt to learn what you're learning, to be able to then execute on that if you have those other qualities.
So I want to bring it home on a different subject, but it's obviously related to career and life success. We have a culture with zero financial literacy. I mean, the number of people who are trapped in debt or just don't even know how to calculate whether something's a good investment, going to take out a loan to get a college degree. No one even asks the ROI question. No one runs the numbers. No one says compared to what? Should I rent? Should I buy a house? There's just everyone is just kind of doing what they see people do around them. What is your advice for parents listening to this to prepare their kids to help them not become trapped and not let finances be the thing that is driving them into careers that they hate or destroying their marriages?
Well, the first thing would be know your kid's natural personality with money. So again, I'll use my own kids. I've got one extreme saver. I mean,
I have one of those too.
yeah, like he's so good at saving that he's becoming manipulative. Like yesterday I came home and my two oldest, I got a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they went on a hike about an hour away. And my oldest invited my middle son to go with him and two of his other friends. And I love that as a dad. I'm like, great, the bros are hanging out, love it. And the oldest one, he drove. And I remember I heard him talking in the kitchen. I was sitting in the living room 2 nights ago and I heard him talking about it. And I heard my middle son right on schedule say, well, I'm not driving. I'm not using my gas. And my oldest son, who's a spender, and I mean like carefree, baby, spender. He's like, oh, yeah, no problem. I'll drive. I'll buy your meal. And I pipe up trying to help him. Hey, no, he can pay for his meal. Dad, I got it. And the middle son's going, yeah, Dad, he's got it. So they come home last night and they got home around 8:00 and I was cleaning up in the kitchen. I was like, hey, how'd it go and everything? Great. And on cue, my middle son goes, it was a great day. It was awesome. I didn't spend any money. So you got to know your kid's default personality with money first so that you can then guide them within that. So you have different ways of guiding them. And so the middle son that I'm talking about, I'm never going to have to talk to him about saving. With him, it'll just be about strategic investing and budgeting, you know? And honestly, I don't think he'll ever need me to tell him about a budget. I really don't. I think I could teach him all the Ramsey budget ways, but he's always going to be the kid who lives on less than he makes. It's just never going to change. The other two, my daughter and my oldest son, I got to teach them. And so what am I going to do? Well, first of all, my oldest is 19. His frontal lobe isn't fully developed and he's got a free spirit. He's a giving person. He's very giving to his friends. And instead of like trying to hone in on him on all this budgeting and stuff, my wife tends to be a little bit more that way. I'm like, he's going to learn. And you know how he's going to learn? He's going to have to be broke for a while. And we're already beginning to see that, by the way, Isaac. After a full year at college, he's now back after his freshman year. And guess who's got a really strong work ethic this summer? Him. You know why? Because he's broke. And outside of his meal plan, I didn't send him any money, a little bit of grocery money. And so now he wasn't motivated last summer. Now he's motivated. Did I have to teach him? No, I didn't. Some of this is just being present and guiding them as they learn, but let them fail. Let them learn how to handle money and fail with money so that they actually learn it, so that when I come in and give a little advice, it's actually applicable and appreciated because they feel pain. But my approach is less lecturing, more guiding.
The difference between, hey, let's go over and teach you how to do a budget versus, hey, Dad, I think I need you to help me make them. When they come to you
100%.
and ask if you can get it to that spot, yeah, that's hard as a parent to let them be broke and to let them
It
suffer a
is.
little bit.
Here's another one. Let me freak everybody out some more. I can anticipate that at some point my oldest is going to call me when he has his first apartment and he's on his own. And he's going to go, I didn't pay my utilities. And now I'm getting phone calls. What do I do? You know, and again, now he's ready. Now I can go, okay, have you done auto pay? No, what's auto pay? You know what I'm saying? Have you done a budget? He will be ready to receive that when he has failed. He's not going to go to debtor's prison. He's not going to ruin his life if he misses, a couple of bills. That's when you grow up. And so I just think I'm trying to make this point that as parents, they're just not going to listen to us very much. They're just not. And so have other people in their life go, hey, by the way, call up my son and, ask him how he's doing. I could go to my brother-in-law and say, hey, call one of my boys. I want you to know this is what's going on. See if you can dig it out of them. And they'll listen to him. They love their uncle, and so I don't know if that helps, but it
No,
just,
that I love it. That answer is so in the spirit of open education as well. Every kid, you don't just say, what's a good financial literacy education in the abstract? What does this kid need at this season of their life? And starting from that personalized standpoint, absolutely
yeah,
amazing.
the last little image for folks. Think back, if you have multiple kids, how you taught each of the individual kids to ride a bike. It was different. There were some similarities, but it was a different process. And at the end of the day, at some point, you had to let them go and be okay if they wrecked. I think the riding the bike, you stay with that. However you did that, that's your guide on any subject with any of your kids as they get older.
I love it. Ken, this has been absolutely awesome. Find work you're wired to do. Go grab this book. It's very, very practical. It has an
By the way,
actual assessment.
that's the student version. So this is a fabulous parenting tool or grandparenting tool or guardian tool or teacher tool because we've simplified the language that we talked about today. And that is the actual student version. There's an adult version as well. So make sure you know the difference between the two.
Absolutely. And if you're in the open ed program, make this part of your curriculum. It'll be
You.
covered. So
Thank you.
Ken, thank you so much, man.
You're doing good work, Isaac. Thanks, man, for having me.
We'll see you.